Hey everyone, it's Hatefulcrawdad again. I'm back for another video, and in this one I'm going to walk you through my Inktober sketchbook. Come on! Alright, so this first word in Inktober was ring. And I wasn't really sure what I was going to do or really what my style was like anymore. I didn't have any good pens. I think I had an old Micron here, but the first thing I thought of with the word ring was ring, like the doorbells. So decided to try to come up with like a top view Big Brother type thing. One of my daughter's beautiful drawings. Oh, another beautiful Claire drawing. Aww. And then we get to day 2, which was mindless. And on this day I was actually pretty busy, or I started, that's what it was, I started Inktober on the second day I decided to dive in, so I had to do 2 in one day to catch up. And I spent a little bit of time on that first one, and I don't know, didn't know what I was doing yet, so wanted to do something quick on the second one, mindless. Next day was called bait for this word. You can see I came up with a bunch of ideas. It's how I typically, you'll see a pattern, do a little sketches over here and then the final one on here, and that's because I'm left-handed and I don't like to drag across the page a lot. You like that one? And this one for bait, you know, I decided funny little candy van idea, drawing the kids in, which I know, horrible. A mouse trap, pulling a dollar bill away from somebody, fishes swimming. I did another sketch where the mountains were dark and the water was more light, and I liked it, so I went with it. For the next day, the word was freeze, and I immediately wanted to do an ice cube with like a flame inside. Then I think I got the idea of, I wonder how accurate, how like realistic I could draw an ice cube, since they have lots of like light refracting off the surfaces in different ways and they melt and you can see through them, so it was kind of a hard situation for me to rationalize my head around, and so I went for it. So that was for freeze. Next day was build. And for build, I immediately started thinking about Legos. I love playing with Legos. Thought about a couple different layouts, like contrasty and over the top with not a ton of detail, but a lot of fun. So did a kind of a top view thing again, and some strange perspective of the Lego tower looking really, really tall, and then maybe like a curved world fading off in the distance. Husky. This one I thought about for a little bit throughout the day, and didn't know if I want to do like just like a fat dude or a piece of corn, and eventually thought of like, oh, I wonder if I could pull off a fat chubby corn character that has a husk on and everything. And honestly, this is one of my favorite ones from the whole month. This is my top favorite one, I believe. This was for Enchanted. A couple ideas I had, you know, were like enchanted jewels, some kind of witch emblem type thing, or fairy or something. I thought of a forest, play with some values, a little foundation of pencil, and then just started drawing with pen. And I just really like all the stippling and how the trees just kind of mesh together, but there's still enough detail of the light coming off to tell what's going on. And yeah, it just has that enchanted forest type feel that I was going for. This one was for frail. For the contour drawing, I went and tried to just look at a picture of hands on the internet, and I can show the picture of what it was here, I think, if I can find it, and just went for it, you know, tried not to pick up my pen. Sometimes I went back over lines a little bit to get back to certain spots, but ultimately wanted to see if I could get a hand that I liked that looked like a hand, because hands are so hard. And here we go to swing. And this one I was feeling the tree thing. So wanted to do a tree on a hill, wanted to do, what is this? Nunchucks maybe, somebody swinging on a big cliff. So I zoomed in a little more, but still wanted it to be a swing and something that like me and my friends, honestly, growing up would have done. Really janky and dangerous, and our parents probably would have yelled at us if they would have known we were doing it, but we did things like this all the time. So I went for it. Really minimal background and super detailed tree. I really like how the highlights in the tree and the bark just turned out here, even though it's like a gobbledygook of just scribbles and mess. It really conveys the bark look to me. This one's for pattern, and for pattern, I knew I wanted to do basket weave. I've tried to draw basket weaves numerous times, just sketching, and it always just trips my brain up when I get in there, and I'm like, okay, over, under, but for some reason I always try to oversimplify. Dad duty called, you know? Kiddo needed a snack. Mommy needed some lunch. She's not feeling good. So let's get back up in this business, huh? Here's a nice little belly button drawing. Who is that?
Me.
That's you? So this is Claire. And her little belly button. She's in the phase where all her people and creatures have belly buttons. Then it comes to snow. So again, I was digging those trees. This was a guy that in the snow kind of faded out. This was Ice Powers, because in our house we're obsessed with Frozen. Let it go. And this was a guy in the snow again. This is another version of the guy in the snow with a little more detail. Then I thought of like a freaky, scary snowman because October, Halloween on the mind. But ended up going with this, which is super isolated, mostly white, snow-covered tree and a snow-covered bear. Then we get into dragon. I really didn't want to draw a dragon because it's a lot of detail, and I was real busy this week again, or this day, so I decided to go forward with a quick like line drawing or stick figure drawing, but wanted to add like a good amount of personality and try to make as much of it out of one line as I could. Oh, and instead of saying dragon, it was like a play on the word drag on and dragon, because he's dragging a dragon out of a door. This one's Ash. Immediately thought of volcano. Tried to do this volcano cloud scene from a photo. Turned out okay, but honestly, it just doesn't have enough details, or like it didn't have enough of a focal point to tell what it was. Played with a couple quick ideas and decided I'm gonna do like a woodblock style thing and mess with my brush pen that I got because I had never really used it. Then we got to overgrown, and I wanted to go with something kind of organic, vine type of stuff, but quickly decided an overgrown beard could be kind of cool. And a couple months back, maybe earlier in this year, I started practicing faces a little bit more, especially straight on, just to get like the proportions right and whatnot. My daughter's sketching in the background, so sorry if there's a little bit of background noise. I'm just gonna roll with it. And went with a really disproportionate beard. Next up was Legend, and right away I thought of Legend of Zelda. I played that game a lot growing up. The new one had just come out. I liked the art style, and I'd always liked the dungeons, and especially the ones that had this like deep cavernous, like you could fall off the edge. So sketched a couple quick versions. Also had an idea of like a map or like a treasure legend type story, but didn't go for it. You'll see this one did come up again because I don't know, something about the composition and the simplicity of it I did like. So you can see there's Legend of Zelda. Then I went with Wild, and I actually recorded myself drawing this one in real time, which at some point I'll probably put up, but I have not had time to do that yet as of recording this. So here for Wild, the whiteboard. Here for Wild, I wanted to do lots of crazy curly stuff and go again with something super simple. Thought of a bear or a wolf that maybe like morphed into a forest in a silhouette, which I really did like. I might try that someday. And then just this crazy wild, I don't know what it is, face thing again. I guess I liked faces still. I want to try another one. Thought of the idea of putting in a triangle. You can see after I sketched it, it was in a square, and I was like, ooh, what would a triangle look like? And my son woke up. So we will be back in just a second. All right. Son's with mommy. So now I gotta get this wrapped up. Here we got ornament with a little addition for my son. But yeah, I like how that turned out. Nice and shiny, kind of sparkly looking. And then went with a contrasting brush, simple, like hinting at a tree in the background. This one's called Misfit. And right away, just the word misfit, I just took it really literal of something just not fitting. Went with that, played with some like top-down light, again, stippling, and wanted to do stippling mixed with a little bit of different ways to get the dimension in there, so yeah. And then the word sling, you can see slingshot right away, playing with the idea of slingshot. Eventually thought of the idea of like having the broken window be the focal point with a scene in the background, and then it also reminded me of the treehouse one. Oh, this was me getting ready for tread. You see I wrote it here. Sort of liking the texture that I made, so I just made a tire tread around it and went with it. A little more abstract. Now treasure, you can see this same idea came up. Here's a re-sketch of it, and I just did a value study just to see how I wanted it spread around. But I really love how the wood turned out, the panels, it really looks like a table, an adventure. setting off in an adventure, perhaps from the same storyline as the treehouse and the slingshot. You never know, but yeah, maybe I'll make something out of these someday, because there's a couple of these that are definitely fit together and I like how they tell a story. So it's treasure. Then the word ghost, which in ghost I really wanted to do something simple using lines again, just to have like an eerie, spooky feel. This one's ancient. Went with this like alien type character. Ultimately the final version looked a little more human, but the nose is the story. I don't know, my thinking was, maybe way back in time somewhere on some old planet, all we had was our nose and some like primitive scribble. And I really did like the shape that turned out, and some of like the edges of these lines, how they fade off nice and sharp. Next is the word tasty.
Get in my belly!
I thought of a burger, because I love burgers. They're my favorite food. I think they are really tasty. But after I saw the Leaning Tower, it made me think of like a burger on a Bloody Mary that I've seen online, where there's like this ridiculous amount of food on top of this Bloody Mary. And then thought maybe the food could be letters. T as the celery and the 2 olives. A is this lemon wedge or whatever with a little extra rind hanging off. The S is 2 shrimp, and then another T with the same thing, but it's a little longer, and the glass is a Y. So you get tasty with a bunch of tasty stuff.
Very, very sneaky, sir.
Then the word dark. For dark, right away I wanted to maybe do like a graveyard type scene, playing with dark. Did this sketch, kind of liked it. Thought I would just go with a repetitive line approach that just got darker and darker. Just has this like cringy, draws you in, feels a little uncomfortable. Coat, so a little paint on a nail, stippling, pen, simple. The word ride came up. I want to do something typographic, so I did the word ride, making some sort of van or something. Then the word injured, which right away I thought of in letter N for injured, and wanted to do a broken N, but it was close to Halloween as well, so I liked the idea of like a bone hanging out and some blood, so just went with this like chiseled looking N and imagined what the bone structure of it would look like if you had ripped the skin off. Kind of morbid, but Halloween. Catch. And this was a ball bouncing, or playing catch with a ball, a fish, and ultimately I went with that fish approach. Found a fish online. I'll have to remember what kind it is. Maybe I'll show a picture of the one I looked at. But did a composition where it's focused in the center with a lot of detail, and the background just to add some visual elements, an interesting shape enclosing it, because a lot of mine have been rectangles or circles. Wanted something kind of liquidy, and yeah, liked how it turned out too. And finally, the last one from yesterday, ripe. I was actually looking at a picture of a lime when I did this, but the way that the pen values ended up turning out, it looks like a blood orange to me now, which I'm okay with, because I really like blood oranges. So that's it. Yeah, that's my Inktober sketchbook. All good to go, and goodbye.